Y'all, I'm Jerry, about to check out 10 WWE stars who turned into everything they hated. This video is about what culture wrestling. By a superstar turning into everything that they hated could mean numerous things. It can mean that they turned heel, that they didn't want to turn heel. That can mean they became a bigger star, a mega star, to the point where they can't do anything normal anymore. And so much more stuff, like basically being a champion and not really spending enough time at home. You gotta constantly be on the road all the time. So we about to hop into the video to see what culture wrestling had to say about this video. Let's go.
Pro wrestlers are often full of crap.
Yep.
That could be a commentary exclusively on the business behind the scenes, to be honest. But this video mixes that with on-screen babbling to examine times WWE stars were definitely full of it. They went from making grand promises about their own integrity to doing the exact opposite of what they preached a short while later. In effect, they turned into everything they once hated. Naturally, this is a sweet way to guarantee heel heat.
Who is he talking about, though?
But it's still interesting to look back on now.
I'm anxious to see this list.
In mind, I'm Gareth from What Culture Wrestling, and here are 10 WWE stars who turned into everything they hated. Number 10, John Cena.
Oh, John Cena became an actor.
John Cena,
full-time actor.
The Rock for buggering off to Hollywood and leaving WWE behind. That criticism even became the crux of their 2011 to 2012 feud and led to back-to-back WrestleMania matches against one another. Meanwhile, old JC claimed he'd never do the same thing. He has, though. WWE is the most part-time of part-time gigs for Cena these days. Recently, he's been talking about the physical toll years of full-time work had on his body, and revealed he wouldn't be able to keep up the same schedule anyway. That's fair enough, but he still went back on his word, didn't he? Cena has cracked into the film business and looks set to stay there for the rest of his days. Somewhere, a certain Dwayne Johnson
said the same thing about The Rock over 10 years ago.
Probably just happy for good old John. Number 9, Bayley. Bayley burst onto the WWE scene via NXT as a cute and huggable.
I wonder what would Bayley be if she did turn back babyface.
Upon jumping up to the main roster, but a 2019 heel turn changed everything. Suddenly, Bayley was
2019 when that happened.
No more. She morphed into a snide bully who cackled at other folks' misfortune and enjoyed holding them back. That eventually led to a two-woman power trip alliance alongside Sasha Banks.
They ran the pandemic era during the summer.
Pandemic. It was great, but it was a complete departure for Bayley. The bullying has continued as part of Damage Control, and it could be tough to ever revisit the huggable days of old again. Bayley 2K23 is exactly the kind of menace Bayley from 2015 would have hated. In fact, she'd probably have delighted in taking this current guys down a peg or two. I'm still not over the Bayley Buddy massacre. Number 8, The Undertaker. It was seriously depressing to see The Undertaker looking glum after stinking performances versus everyone from Bill Goldberg to Roman Reigns. The Goldberg match in particular was a harrowing reminder of Taker's physical limitations. He'd pushed his body as far as it was willing to go. Nobody enjoyed
He did. Both of them did, actually.
The Undertaker was always a loyal soldier to the WWF/WWE cause, and he was rightly proud of the way he tweaked that original character to start becoming legit great inside of the squared circle. Bouts versus Shawn Michaels will live forever, and so will matches against the likes of Bret Hart, Mick Foley, and others. Then there's the latter portion of his iconic career. It's one Matt Calloway clearly hates looking back on. That final batch of matches broke his heart and made him realize it was finally time to hang up the boots, trench coat, hat, and eyeliner for good. Number 7, Bret Hart. Prime Bret Hart was
the one with the steel cage match, not a steel cage match, Hell in a Cell match with versus Triple H. This should have been his last match.
And sent him spiraling off into an increasingly messy WCW scene for a miserable few years. Montreal kicked the hell out of Bret's love for the business. Is it totally responsible for what happened next in WCW though? That's still up for debate, really.
Bret Hart hates Goldberg for ending his career.
According to him, Hart simply wasn't all that interested anymore and started collecting paydays for very little. Wrestling was no longer his labor of love. That would have turned Bret circa 1994's stomach. In fact, it would have made Hart circa early 1997 feel nauseous too. His general disinterest reeked, and it conjured up parallels to guys like the Ultimate Warrior who had been alarmingly apathetic towards wrestling in the past. Number 6, the Hardy Boys. Matt and Jeff Hardy were once the walking, talking definition of a young tag team who stood out from the crowd as fresh and interesting. Their outfits were different to other tags at the time, and their big bumping style was only matched by the likes of Edge and Christian or the Dudleys. Fast forward to 2023 and the repeat button has been worn out a bit. You can't be young and hip forever. Recently the Hardys revealed plans to go after the AEW tag team titles, which means they'll likely trample all over a bunch of fresh talent to get there. Would they have been thrilled by the thought of that back in 1999 to 2000? No, absolutely not. In other words, the Hardys have become the kind of duo Matt and Jeff wanted to see step aside back at the turn of the millennium. They'd have been pissed, for example, if the Legion of Doom had returned in 2000 to march in front of them and wrestle for the top prizes. But that could be an all-elite reality soon enough. Number 5, Becky Lynch. Becky Lynch earned favourable comparisons to Stone Cold when she launched her ultra-successful and no-frills The Man Guys. People lapped up how straightforward and badass
that was the height of her career, 2018, 2019.
She'd ever need to change again. Cue big-time Bex and cue Lynch turning into the kind of showboating git she'd have torn strips off of back in 2019. Look at that image. Who springs to mind? Lady Gaga is an obvious one, but it could really be any kind of diva-esque pop star.
She looked good though.
WWE land, it could also be someone like a certain Charlotte Flair. You know, the same Charlotte Flair one Bex turned her nose up at? Big Time Bex was the antithesis of the man. Whilst that character was all about rebellion and refusing to be overlooked any longer, the pop star reinvention was more
that right there made her character, the man's character, when she got her nose broken.
Quite radical departure from the man's simple genius during those brilliant 2018 to 2019 days. Number 4, Chris Jericho. Cast your minds back to Chris Jericho's brutal promos about childhood hero Shawn Michaels throughout 2003. The then Y2J was appalled at Shawn for thinking of himself rather than the future of wrestling, and he also took digs at his credibility / overall behaviour. WWE didn't go as far as to have Jericho tell HBK his time was up in ring, but they did toy with it, and there was a definite air of your yesterday's news about the whole thing. Chris wanted Shawn to step aside so he could bask in the spotlight and show what he was capable of, but Jericho is now Michaels, albeit in AEW. He's that older wrestler who still has star power coming out of his ears, which makes it challenging for the promotion to move away from him. Does Jericho elevate younger stars? Sure, but so did Michaels. Also, it's kind of awkward that Jericho is now one of those legacy stars he'd have likely scoffed at back during the WCW days. Number 3, Triple H. This is a fun and light-hearted one, eh? Triple H went from leading a group of literal degenerates in DX to leading The Authority. Before that, he'd also temporarily ditched the whole D-Generation X thing to become a member of the corporation, which was a drastic switch for someone who was supposed to be Chief Rabble-Rouser. That brief stint in the corporation was a teaser for things to come just over a decade later. Tripp stood alongside Stephanie McMahon to do their
running the show.
Impressions, and they dismissed fresh faces like Daniel Bryan as a B-plus player. It was a watered-down version of Vince versus Steve Austin, basically. In short, Hunter became the Mr. McMahon character he'd once poked fun at in DX. He cut his long hair, wore smart suits, and carried himself like a snooty businessman who pretended to have the audience's best interest at heart, while simultaneously serving his own ego. Who does that sound like? Number 2, Steve Austin. Steve Austin is remembered today as the ultimate rebel / hell-raising badass. His hijinks opposite Vince McMahon are the stuff of legend, and millions of people get borderline teary when reminiscing about the glory days of Attitude. There's also a reason why folks don't hold Austin's heel turn and alliance with Vince in the same regard. It's even something Steve considers a mistake looking back. Austin went from taking pleasure in upsetting the boss and his corporate chosen ones to unthinkable corporate suck-up stooge in 2001. Almost overnight, Stone Cold stripped away everything that made him a fan favourite. He became cowardly instead of fearless, comedic instead of straight-laced, and desperate instead of proud. Hell yeah, more like hell no, am I right? Number 1, Roman Reigns. 3 things are certain in life: death, taxes, and WWE booking Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar until the end of time. That's a feud the company has come back to over and over again, and they'll still.
Their last match at SummerSlam was good. That match right there was the best one to me.
After all, Roman has turned into everything he hated about Brock. Reigns used to criticize Lesnar for being a part-time world champion who hid behind others. Fast forward to now, and that's precisely what he himself is. Hell, he even has Paul Heyman in toe. Actually, Roman is worse than Brock because he has a faction of family members who do his bidding. It's fun to look back on Reigns' tut-tutting promos about Lesnar now, then realise that he's turned into the same kind of part-time elitist. That's not a dig because Roman has been freaking awesome as the tribal chief, but it is
no lie, he has.
And it will likely be mentioned a few more times as the reign continues
1,000+ days as WWE Universal Champion, Undisputed Champion, excuse me.
Everything they hated. Well, let us know all about them in the comment section right down below, and don't forget to like,
shout out to
share,
Roman
and
Reigns.
click on that subscribe button.
Alright y'all, great video, man. Let me know down below in the comments on what y'all thought of my reaction to this video. Like, comment, subscribe. Until next time, I'm out. Peace.